Okay, we're live.
It's cats and what? What's the thing?
Cats and boots. Boots and cats. That was it. Boots and cats. Boots and cats.
Welcome, fellow humans, to the Milliseconds Apart podcast, a podcast of three friends who are separated by thousands and thousands of miles in real life, but only milliseconds apart via the internet. My name is Matt. I enjoy eating my popcorn with a spoon.
My name's Izzy. I'm a final year medical student at Cambridge University.
And I'm Ruri. I'm a med student too, and also a YouTuber.
I feel so boring compared to Matt.
Yeah, me too. Like, we're med students.
Yeah, I'm just tired all the time and I'm burned out.
It's okay, friends. It's okay,
we literally
friends.
give that impression.
Yeah, like next to like literally like a shining, radiant human who eats popcorn with a spoon.
You are keeping our society running. I am just here to bring the good juju. So in this episode, here's what we're going to be talking about. Being alone, traveling alone, just everything about being alone, how we feel about that. Because I think that in our society, it's not really super common, or at least it hasn't been in my experience. So why don't we start off with just, let's get a baseline for each of us. How much time do you generally spend alone, or how much do you enjoy spending time just by yourself?
I feel like I used to really do enjoy spending my time alone, because I feel like it wasn't the preset for me. The preset for me was to have my friends or my family with me and then like find some time to be alone. But now, since I moved to an apartment for my med school, I am really alone all the time because I'm staying there like alone. Yes, I go to my uni and I see my friends there, and on the weekends I see my parents, but eating my food alone and going to bed and having no one to talk before going to bed, it just made me so sad, and I feel like I don't enjoy it anymore. If I find like some time that I'm alone, I try to meet someone else, or I try to call someone else like on Zoom meetings or stuff, but I don't enjoy it anymore. I spend quite a lot of time alone and I don't enjoy it. That's my answer. What about you, Z?
So I feel like for me, I haven't really had the opportunity to really like spend time very alone. So I'm always living in a house with either like housemates or other medical students on placement, or if I'm at home, I'm like with my parents. But generally, like, maybe it's because I do have those people and I do bump into them in the kitchen, or I do see them around. But actually, I really cherish and I really treasure the time that I have genuinely like alone in my room. I like seeing them a lot, and I obviously love socializing with them and hanging out with them. But I definitely need that time just for me, and just like for me to do my stuff, whether that's like journaling or yoga or meditation. I do all these things like generally on my own. And I find that it is a time for me to kind of recharge a little bit and just recalibrate in a way. After hanging out with people, I feel like my energy can be quite like high energy, and I can be like quite energized by that interaction as well. But then I need to come back to that place of like just being a little bit more chill and having that time to decompress.
Yeah, I think for me, I have a proper amount of alone time, and I think that just has to do with circumstance and environment. So just because I moved home with my parents so that I could, use this as a base, I could practice learning Tagalog, I could, go travel to different places. But at the same time, it's like they work during the day. So like I have that alone time. And if I ever need to, I can just come to my room. So that's something where I know I've had to carve it out myself and like kind of set even those limits and just have those sets of expectations where sometimes I just tell them, hey, like, I'm just going to be doing my own thing, or I'm going to go, to a Starbucks or, some other coffee shop to just be able to work, but to be able to get that recharge. Because that's something I wanted to ask both of you about. In general, are both of you more introverted or extroverted, right? I think that I have a general idea, but, kind of an audience, they're not necessarily going to see that, right, in the videos or the things that we create. So how would you define yourself there, and why would you pick either one?
I used to think that I'm an introvert, but these days I realize that I'm actually not an introvert. I think I'm slightly bit towards to an extrovert, but I'm not like super extrovert. So I would like to call myself an ambivert. That's the word that we use, I think. But it really depends on my mood, what type of day I'm having, what type of mood I'm in, and what type of like tasks I have. I feel like whenever I'm busy, I am like more towards introvert, and whenever I have like more free time and more when I'm on my holiday and stuff, I think I'm more extroverted. So I think my personality really changes according to the environment and also according to the people. If people are really extrovert around me, I don't necessarily, be extrovert. I think I'll become more introverted. And if people around me are introverted, then I'll become like extroverted. So I think I'll just like adapt to the environment and be the opposite. I think that's how I am. What about you guys?
Yeah, I feel like I am also sort of in the middle. So the like Myers-Briggs personality type. My score for the introvert versus extrovert is always like around 50%. So it will sometimes be like 48, sometimes like 52. And so then I always like oscillate between those two, like being supposedly extroverted or introverted. So I feel like I would identify as an ambivert, the same as you, which isn't, I don't know. It doesn't really like say a huge amount about me because it's just, it really depends on my mood, depends on the day, and I need a little bit of both. It's about that kind of balance for me. I think when people meet me, if they meet me out in like a social setting, they immediately think I'm very extroverted. I'm not sure why, but when people who get to know me a bit better find out that I actually spend a lot of time alone and I actually really like being alone, they're a bit surprised. They're like, because they expect me to be extroverted. And I think maybe similar to you, Rory, I kind of adapt to the situation, and in a social setting, then I seem more extroverted than I genuinely am. But then when I'm on my own, I can like really like go into myself and like avoid humans for a while. But nobody sees that. So
yeah,
and I think it's that bit where none of us, it's never black and white, right? Like maybe sure there's people that are extremes where like they're completely extroverted, right? They're not comfortable by themselves, all that, and like other people who don't really do as well in social situations. But I mean, I think we all adapt to a certain degree, and I think that even the way that we define ourselves in our head is going to determine what we think we're supposed to be comfortable with and what we're supposed to be uncomfortable with, right? Like if you go and you tell yourself like, oh, I am just an extrovert, maybe that has those ideas. I think this is something in my personal life before where I would be like, oh no, I'm just an extroverted person. I'm not comfortable with silence because extroverts are not comfortable by themselves. But that's just a story that we tell in our heads, as opposed to like the reality is we're all spending, like the only people that we're with 100% of the time are ourselves. So whether we're the most extroverted or the most introverted, like we have to have, in my opinion, like that relationship with ourselves to be able to have like really that companion right through life. Otherwise it can be pretty lonely. And with that, like that's why I love Myers-Briggs. I love different personality types to act as guides, but how much of the time they can sometimes become self-fulfilling prophecies where we say, oh, like that really fits with me. And then we'll really lean into certain things to find a sense of identity, as opposed to really saying like, okay, like it fits me in this framework, but there's also certain parts that don't really click.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. I saw a website where people were discussing my personality type. People were discussing about my personality type according to things that I said in my videos. So firstly, my YouTube videos, they don't represent my real personality first. And second thing, they were analyzing the things that I was saying and then saying that, oh, this is like T dominant and N dominant, blah, blah. And then they were just like analyzing. And that was like, ooh. I mean, it really depends what type of day I'm having. I don't agree on the things that I said back in the day. I have like totally different opinions, and just like analyzing from them and saying that my personality is this and this. And, I don't really like categorizing and putting yourself in boxes too much. I feel like people are so obsessed with identifying themselves. Like, you're extrovert, you're introvert, you're like this, but at the end of the day, we're just like humans, and it really like differs. So I don't think there is a need to identify everything. And when reading that website, a lot of people were wrong AF. So just to let you know.
Yeah. How does that feel actually, to have people like discussing your personality and and trying to like define what you are just based on a small snapshot via your YouTube videos or your Instagram? Like, how does that feel?
At the beginning, it really annoyed me because it clearly shows that they don't know me at all, but they're pretending that they know me. But now I think I just like find it really funny, and also I'm gladful towards them because that means that they're really into me. Like they're literally analyzing my personality. I even don't do that, and they're like doing for a stranger they have never ever talked to. So I'm just like glad for the attention. Yeah.
Well, and Maru, you were talking earlier to us today about how like I'm not really sure that people actually watch my videos. Well, maybe they're watching a lot closer than you think.
Yeah, it's like either like people who watch every single detail, and versus the people who only read the title and just like watch the first 5 seconds of the video. We don't have in between. We have like these extremes. I feel like I don't know.
And on that,
which is kind of fun.
On the point too about people analyzing like such a small snapshot, to me, I think about we can manufacture. Truly, like maybe there's certain parts of our personality that are quote unquote natural, but like we can manufacture to a large degree. I think a lot of the time this happens whenever you're in a new environment. School is the first thing that pops up to me, or maybe you move to a new place. Yeah. Nobody knows anything about you. You can recreate anything. And that's why, like, with these personality types, like, not holding on to them so strongly, like, having some sort of detachment to it. Because at the end of the day, it's a choice that we have. Maybe it's more difficult for some people to be able to be more extroverted versus introverted is the example we're talking about. But it still is, like, a choice that we can actively change, I think, right, at any given time.
Okay, I'm back.
I was like, is Ruri dabbing like in like agreement, or is she sneezing? What is going on?
Bless you.
I always sneeze multiple times. Thank you, me too. And that's like something that I've been doing from my childhood. I don't know why, but I sneeze multiple times.
That was aggressive looking.
Yeah, you also like you muted yourself so quickly that I didn't even like hear anything, and I just saw you like head banging. I was like, what is going on?
I feel relieved.
Okay, so where were we?
No, just kind of talking about personalities. Well, let's switch gears a little bit, because the reason that this topic came to mind was I was actually watching one of Ruri's vlogs. I do watch both of your videos, and so
thank you.
You're welcome. And in that, you were talking about not enjoying traveling alone, right? I think it was the one where you went over to Rome. So, what is the experience for both of you traveling alone? Have you done it? Do you like it? Why not?
I don't like it. I made a vlog and telling that I hate it so much. I mean, yes, it's fun. It's fun, but for like I would say like 70% of the time I feel like really alone, and I wish I had someone to eat with me. I mean, I feel like it's the food part. The other parts are not like boring, but whenever I'm eating something, I would like to share with someone else, and I would like to talk about the food, and I would also like to eat a bunch of different varieties of food. So in my family, we would order, like, if we're going for a dinner, we're like four people, so we would order like 4 different things and share it all together and taste it and talk about it, and that's something that I really enjoy from my childhood. So whenever I'm traveling alone, I eat something that is really delicious, but I have no one to talk about it and no one to like share, so it made me feel really alone. And also in Rome, everybody was couples, like kissing, like hugging, saying, I don't know. I don't understand Italian, but I was pretty sure that they were talking about something romantic. It just like shows. And I was like there reacting to my camera, saying like, to my camera. That felt so alone. That was so alone. And I was the only one who was alone there. And everybody was looking at me. I didn't enjoy that, I would say. What about you guys?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been on a whole solo trip, but I have had trips where I've been alone for like short periods, like maybe like only a day or like maybe like 2 days or something on my own. Or I'd like kind of go out on an excursion like kind of on my own, but that's quite rare. So I feel like I don't have the full experience that you've had. I think initially, like, it felt kind of weirdly empty, because usually when I'm traveling, I will plan the day with somebody else. I'll be like, oh, like, where should we go? We'll get a bit excited. We'll talk about what we're doing. We'll be like, when we go places, then we take pictures together. We'll like take pictures of each other and then like chat about like stuff that we're doing. And it feels like a social activity to travel. But when I was on my own, so I think I was on my own in Venice for like a day or something like that. And I just I wandered around. I looked at the beautiful things. I was like, this is beautiful. I took some selfies because no one could take the picture for me unless I asked a stranger. And then I was like, oh, I want to go on a gondola, like, you know, one of those traditional boats that you see in Venice. Yeah. I was like, oh, I have no one to go with. I guess I'll find some strangers to go on the boat with. So then I actually got chatting to some other like solo travelers who also wanted to go on a gondola that I bumped into just at the kind of pier or like the waterside, and we went on the gondola together. It was nice like chatting to them, and like they were really super friendly, and it was kind of liberating to just be on my own. But at the same time, then it was like, in the future I can't ever go and say to them like, oh, do you remember the time we went to Venice and we went on the gondolas? Look at this picture of us. I'll never see them again. But when I travel with people, it's like, oh, remember that time that we did this stupid thing in Italy, or like, yeah. So I feel like it's more mindful on your own, but the memories and the shared experience adds a lot of richness to the experience of traveling. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Matt? Because you go solo traveling quite a bit, right?
Yeah, and I think that I can definitely resonate with both of your experiences, especially at the start. Like, so my first solo travel was after I graduated. I went over to Southeast Asia for 5 weeks. So I bookended it in the Philippines, and then I spent a week in Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. So like not a super, super long time, like compared to, you know, some of the holidays that people can take, but, you know, kind of in the States, and I just graduated, didn't have much money. So like that was kind of the trip. And I actually remember the first week was in Thailand, and I had never felt so lonely. Never, ever. I think part of it, I was super scared because I have a severe peanut allergy, and that was before I had like peanut. I've had a few allergic reactions in the last couple of years. So like now I'm more sensitized to it, of understanding, okay, like this is what happens to my body now. But before there was still definitely the fear, because the last time I was a kid and it took half a peanut for me to go into anaphylactic shock and like emergency room, all that sort of thing. But I remember distinctly, like, I would barely leave, right, the hostel, barely leave the hotel, like, just felt so alone. Like, I would walk around and be like, all right, like, but there's, to your point there, Izzy, like, there's nobody that I'm going to remember the experience with, right? There's nobody that I'm going to be able to look back on and say, hey, like, this picture, we were sitting here together, we enjoyed this experience. But I will say, you know, over the last few years, have done a decent amount of solo traveling, and I actually prefer it now. Like, unless there are friends that I really genuinely enjoy, like the way that we travel together, I will choose to go by myself. Because I think that in traveling, and it's one where there's plenty of people who have traveled more than me, but I know how I travel, and I know the way I like to travel, and I know kind of like the energy, and especially with work, it's like, you know, there was 1 year where I was traveling a bunch for work, where I literally would wake up on the, like, from the plane, I'd be napping, and I would not know the city I was in. It was just every week a different place. So in that, it's like, you know, I know the routines of going to the airport, like what public transit's like all of those sorts of things. And so unless I have somebody that's really like go with the flow in that manner, I prefer to do it by myself, because yes, there is that part that is the downside of not being able to remember with somebody that you know, but there's also the positive. Sometimes you find some really cool friendships, and I think that being a solo traveler, you're much more approachable to other people. You know, I had a certain experience in Taiwan, where I just went there for a weekend. Like, so from the States, I just went there for a weekend, and I stayed at this hostel, and it was just me, right? And there were all these people, and I had some of the coolest conversations, and people that I'm now connected with. I don't really communicate with them as much, but like, if I was with somebody else, I wouldn't have been as likely to go out to the meals to share with them, to get to hear about their cultures, those sorts of things. So at least for me, it's been one where at the start, it sucked. It was so awful. But then over time, you just kind of get used to what that routine is like. And then you figure out what works for you.
Do you think it's the kind of thing where if everyone travels a little bit more solo, then you kind of get into the groove of it? So like, for example, for me, I've barely got any experience traveling on my own, only like a couple of odd days. Like, do you think if I put more into it. I was like, I'll like commit to this. Do you think that's something that I would adapt to, or anyone would adapt to over time? Or is it something that you personally vibed with your personality? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, it's more the former. And, I've had friends talk about, hey, like, I don't want to go on an international trip or a big trip by myself. And I said, like, we'll just go somewhere within our country, right? And I think for everybody else out there, like, pick somewhere where it's maybe even it's just a drive, or it's a little bit of a flight, or it's nothing, or a train ride. It's not too big. But I think that there's, as you mentioned, this mindfulness, there's a peace, right, whenever you're by yourself and you just get to decide what you're going to do. And I think that there's a liberation in nobody else knows me here. Like, that to me is one of the coolest feelings of, like, oh my gosh, like, I'm walking around. I will literally never see almost any of these people again, but I'm just who I am. And, like, that's kind of to our point about identity. Like, well, you can then start to ask the question, like, all right, well, taking away all these labels, taking away all the things that people know about me, if I had talked to this person, this is their only interaction with me, who am I? And I think that's why, like, everybody could benefit from this sort of travel, and everybody could benefit from being able to just spend the time in an uncomfortable environment, being so hyper aware of your surroundings, but by yourself.
It's kind of interesting to me because my mom used to travel alone, and actually she was doing sort of like another world tour, but she was going on like a bunch of different countries that she's interested in. And at the beginning, she really liked it. Like, she used to like solo traveling so much. But after I grew up, I think the like style, as you mentioned, Matt, we travel is really similar with my mom. And we're also like not embarrassed of each other. So, and it's also like we don't have like really mannerisms that you would have towards your friend. Like, you would ask your friend if she or he wants to like see there or there. But like with my mom, we say like, okay, we'll meet at like 12 o'clock here and here. And then we do our things separately, and then we meet together and eat our food and stuff, and then we go then like separately. So the style we travel is really suits us. So after starting to travel with me, my mom started to hate solo traveling. So I feel like it's different from everybody else, and I think I'm pretty like lucky to have someone else that who has the same traveling style. But I can't imagine myself traveling with one of my friends, like two of us, and then going for a trip for a week or so. I don't think that I can do that. I would prefer solo. So yeah, it really depends who you go on travel with, in my opinion. I don't know. I never been on a trip with my friends. Like, we went on a school trip, but it's like it's a whole different concept. So I don't know. I might try it. Yeah. Oh, and also I have actually a thing to ask. My mom says that if you travel with your friend and go on a trip together, you will either end up be super, super close, or you'll either end your friendship. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think I would go to the extreme of necessarily ending the friendship.
Yeah.
But I know that there are certainly times where I thought afterwards, like, I love this person, and for the love of my friendship with them, we are never traveling, at least just the two of us again. Like, it's just like knowing that if we continually do this, it's not going to work. And I think that that's okay, right? Because, I mean, realistically though, like, when you're traveling with people, you're with them, especially if you're staying in the same place, so many hours, right? You see so many things that otherwise you wouldn't see. So yeah, I totally agree with, like, I don't know if you could end it in one, but maybe. Yeah. What do you think?
Hey, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's definitely quite a polarizing experience in that if you get along, then like you just spending so much time with one other person is always going to be super intense, and I feel like it just like accelerates that process of like getting to know like every single thing about them. And if there's something that you clash over, then that will appear faster as well. Or if you really get along and you can be really comfortable with each other, then that accelerates that intimacy as well. But ending the friendship is very dramatic, but it might be on the road towards that for some people.
Yeah. I think like my mom ended her friendship, like couple of friendships after like trips. So I didn't ask her like the details, but I might ask after this like recording session. I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. No, keep us posted on that. And I'm curious, maybe we haven't all had the experience of traveling alone, but I think we've all had the experience of being alone. what are some tips, right, that you would share that would have helped you in the past if somebody is maybe not as comfortable being by themselves? If they're not as comfortable, like just sitting with their own thoughts, what would you say to somebody like that?
I think the thing that really helped me is that vlogging the process and filming, actually, because when you're in that moment, you actually don't realize much of things. But when you film and look afterwards, you actually realize that it's actually really fun, and you realize new things that you could never realize at that moment. So I feel like filming it and pretending to be a YouTuber or something really helped me. And even back in the day when I was like trying this YouTube thing, I used to vlog the days that I went to school because I hated my high school. So I made it at least a content so that I can enjoy it a bit, because I really loved vlogging. So I think combining with something that you truly enjoy and the thing that you don't like would make the process a bit more, I don't know, entertaining maybe. At least that's what I do.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
I think, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't thought of that either. I guess for me, the mindset shift, I guess, that helped me to feel less lonely when I was alone, when traveling or just randomly, it's just like thinking of it more as an adventure. Like I get to be completely free for this amount of time, and I can completely focus on the outside world. I don't need to focus on any interpersonal relationships or interpersonal interactions. I can just purely focus on my relationship with myself in this moment and my surroundings and how I'm taking all of that in. And I think that's actually something that is quite useful to tap into sometimes anyway. Like it's just very grounding to just come back to that and step away from worrying about all the social interactions, because I feel like sometimes it's easy to get wrapped up in thinking like, oh, what's this person thinking, what's that person thinking, like what should I do, when actually just step back, take a moment to yourself and just take a walk, and it's all gonna be good. Yeah, actually recently in London, I was meeting a friend for lunch, but they got super delayed because there was some like emergency. So then I had like an extra like whole hour in central London, which isn't like quite enough time to really do anything else. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go on a big walk around London by myself. And I just like walked all around like the central areas of London, taking lots of pictures. I think similar to you, Rory, actually, when I have something to do, like when I'm taking pictures, it's a very like mindful focus for me to be doing something or like looking for beauty in my surroundings. And actually that was really fun, and I saw a lot of things and I noticed a lot of things I would never have noticed otherwise if I weren't just walking on my own. Yeah, so that's what I would say. How about you, Matt? Because you have quite a lot of experience solo traveling, so like
well,
what would your...
Yeah, I like the mindset you have of like getting to be alone, because even thinking at the start of our episode, right? Like it can be the grass is greener, where whenever we're by ourselves, man, I want to be with people. Sometimes when we're with people, man, I want to be by myself. And embracing like what is the opportunity in the being alone. And I really, resonated with what both of you said, right? For you, Ruri, like it's being able to like record that process and not have to think about like communicating with another person, right? Your whole mind can just be on the focus of the creating, on the focus of the capturing. When Izzy, you brought up a really good point there, where part of our mind, whenever we're with other people, is it's naturally thinking, what are they thinking of me? How are we going to interact, right? Maybe we're not like actively thinking about that, but part of our mind is there. Whereas whenever we're by ourselves, well, it's not. And so I imagine we have just more brain power, right? We have more bandwidth to be able to focus on the task at hand. And so whichever situation we're in, right, whether we're alone or we're with people, it's like, what's the opportunity that if we are in the opposite situation, we would want? Because in that way, maybe there's more gratitude, right, towards wherever we are, since it's always kind of fluid there. But yeah, I think that those are phenomenal ways, right? It's like the recording is one that I had never thought of. I'm definitely going to be doing more of now, where it's just like, all right, here's this experience.
Yeah, that's part of the YouTube journey as well. Got to get the content.
Yeah, and also like whenever you're editing, you can actually clearly see yourself getting out of your comfort zone and becoming like more comfortable in front of camera, even if you're super alone. And actually, that's a very fun experience, but... just for the sake of this experience, I wouldn't spend my money on solo traveling. If I only have to do solo traveling, I would do that process, I think. Yeah, I would rather spend my money twice as much and then invite my mom for a trip, I would say. Yeah. But there are some ways to enjoy it.
Yeah.
It sounds like the way that you and your mum travel together is quite nice. It's like quite symbiotic, and that you have times together and you have times apart, and it sounds like a very like natural, comfortable co-traveling experience. So that sounds really lovely, actually.
Yeah, that's why we don't travel with like my brother or with my dad. That's why we always like prefer each other because like they're really dependent. Like my brother or my dad loves to do things together, but like with my mom, we're like, if we want to do it together, we're gonna do it together, but we're not doing it for the sake of doing together. We're just doing it together because both of us wanted it and it just like matched, so we do it together anyways. But so yeah, we like to spend our time separately and then meet and then separately. So that's why we always do girls trip rather than like mixed trip.
Well, and on that point there, I think that we can also set rules or the guidelines based on what we think that we need, right? And sure, it takes experimenting to try, but if we can communicate effectively with the person that we're going to potentially travel with and say, hey, like, this is how I enjoy traveling. How do you enjoy traveling? And then kind of mix in there, like, we can state our intentions, and then I think in that way we dictate, right, what our experience ends up being, right? So much of the time it's like, oh, things just happen to us. Like, they do, but we still have that power to be able to set intentions beforehand, and that can just steer us in such a great direction. So like with that, Ruri, like maybe you have other friends who you say, hey, this is how I'm going to want to travel. Do you want to travel this way? And then you can say yes or no, right? Izzy, however you want to travel, like whatever the ratio is, like we just communicate those from the start. And I think that whenever we have those expectations, it's just easier on everybody.
I feel like we should do it together. So because like most of my friends don't have the ability to travel, either it's because of visa or either it's because of financial situations and stuff. But I feel like we can actually experiment these and then try and document this.
Yeah, that actually.
And then like go to different countries and then make it a series. Like, you know, I feel like that would be super, super fun.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
I'm pretty open on that.
Yeah, I'm down.
Yeah, I feel like I can travel with you guys because like you said, Matt, like you can put like some rules and stuff, but like most of my friends wouldn't follow these rules. Yes, we would set those rules, but I know them. They're like really crazy people, so they're not gonna follow that rules. I'm pretty sure about that. But when it comes to us, I feel like we can respect each other's rules and follow these and actually make sure that we follow the rules, and we can also record these process in all of our channels and post it and then make it a podcast and then like giving a feedback and stuff. So I think it would benefit us much more compared to other people, like other random friends, in my opinion. So stay tuned for travel.
If anyone wants to show us around your city, let us know. The Hype Trail World Tour coming soon.
Yeah, that would be so lit.
So, all right, well, let's wrap this one up here because I think that this is a proper time. So, for anybody out there in the audience, so questions for you, right? Pick any of these ones. We'd love to be able to hear from you down in the comments. Do you like being alone, right? Why or why not? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? And then if you've solo traveled, what has that experience been like for you? What have been the great parts and what have been the struggles? So we look forward to hearing from you. Until the next time, we're wishing you all the best. Didn't really think of an outro, so sending you all the love. We love you. Talk soon. Bye.